dash pad. Hopefully just a part one, but that's what's left of the dash pad that was on our 72 dash pad frame. And as you can see, there's the old texture and the stitching. The edge closest to the windshield just pretty much disintegrated. I used a putty knife and so on and so forth. Well, this leaves you like this film of old foam that's really tough here where it's more toward the inside of the van, but out here where the frame is rusty, that's where the moisture condensation got under it, where it would crack and became brittle. Now I'm trying to strip all this off, and I found instantly what takes this off really easy. See it all crackling up here? Carbon choke cleaner. Look at that. Comes right off. So we're going through an experiment here. We're going to see what we can do. Okay, sorry for the previous unfocused video footage, but here's the face of the dash pad. This is the frame that was used to mold at the factories or the supplier, whoever did the dash units for the Chrysler Corporation. Okay, so it's just a piece of sheet metal, and we will treat this rust here, and we'll use our phosphate, or what do you call that? Phosphoric acid, I'm sorry. Rust dissolver. I think it'll take that pretty good. We'll give it a light sanding. And I'm also stripping the rest of the stuff in the backside. Now this gives a little bit of a cushion. It's almost like 1/8 of an inch here. Out here in spots it's about 1/4 of an inch. So I have an idea for that, and I'll get into that here in a moment, and hopefully it'll make some sense. I'm kind of in a brainstorming mode, and I'm just going to share with you as we go. I would like to have a pad. I think it would be best to have a pad or a soft surface on it, but that's not very easy to acquire, at least in the form of a mold and with our limited resources. There are companies that do the more popular muscle car dashes, and I actually inquired, would this be possible? It's fairly straight. They said, well, it would be straightforward, but the tooling to make it is the difficult part, and it would not be worth their trouble. There's just not enough of this particular dash pad, and this dash pad went from like 71 to 73, and then they changed it. See, this is the driver's side. It had more of a scoop, and then it dropped down here, and that was from like 74 on up to 78 or 79, I think 78. And those are very popular, but I don't think that they even make those. So we're going to have to be ingenuitive and come up with something on our own here. And what I have brewing over here as we're speaking, I have some of the closed cell foam here that we've been using for gaskets, like on our heater box, and firewall seals. And a couple observations I made is that it's got a nice firm, but it has a soft feeling to it. And so that's much like the way the dashes are. Now, when I take 2 of these, which is about 1/8 of an inch each, 2 of them, put them together, you get your 1/4 inch, right? Well, a lot of these samples here, when you pull it up, it's about 1/4 of an inch. So if I compare these here, 2 of them put together, just about the same. So that's good. That's a positive. I did notice that in some spots towards this heavier part of the pad right here, it was slightly thicker, but I ain't gonna worry about that. I think that's pretty small potatoes compared to what we're trying to do here to begin with. So I have these pieces out, and I also have just a regular, we're gonna have that represent the normal thickness. And one thing I noticed about this stuff, I saw a big roll. I mean, it was huge. Usually you see this stuff in sheets about this big, Well, I noticed that Hobby Lobby and at Michael's Crafts, they have this stuff in like large rolls, huge. And I'm thinking, out of the roll I saw, I might be able to cut it in half, fold it over, and glue it. Find a real good glue, maybe a rubber cement, something to that effect, even better hopefully, and get the shape down on it. Alright gang, it's the next day. This dash is completely stripped of the foam, and what you got going on here, I'm going to have to scrub this off, but it's the phosphoric acid based rust remover from Rust-Oleum, and you got that rust off that edge there. And it actually, this morning I looked at it, really early this morning I looked at it, and it had already taken it off. So we're just going to scrub it down and clean it really well. And you see both sides of it is bare. So, and these are where the studs are. So if you're curious what that is, it's just where the stud goes through to mount it to the dash itself. Okay, now I talked about that foam. Now I got a closer look at it today. I went to Hobby Lobby, and they had a little section set up. It had paints, and then this different thicknesses of this foam right here, and it was considered like a little cosplay, like, you know, if you're building a Star Wars costume or something. My nephew, for instance, he likes to build stuff, and you know, we did that a lot too when we was kids, so it's a good creative avenue to explore for your kids. But I noticed that they actually had this stuff thicker than the I think the 1/4 inch that I was showing you earlier. This looks like it's about a 1/2 inch or so. And what I thought was cool about it was what did I do? Oh yeah, here's the pad itself, the original pad, and you see here the thickness of it matches almost perfectly. Like, it's smooth on top and it's almost there on the bottom. And I would say this could have even fatigued a little bit to where it probably used to be that way. Now you can see where it wraps around, or would have wrapped around the metal frame there. So that'll be a little bit of a challenge there, but we'll use clamps. And we'll try to use them like crazy too. I got a handful here, but we got a source for many, many more of them if we need it. A little bit of adjustment. It is right. It's exactly 60 inches, 5 feet. If you squish it down, it falls about a 1/16 of an inch there, and then just a little over a 1/16 of an inch there. I think we can make this definitely work. And we'll just cut a template, just a little bit, or not a template, but we'll cut a piece that's probably a good 1/2 inch longer on each side, so an inch larger all the way around than it is than the actual frame is itself. Grab on it. Okay. So we'll give this a try. We'll experiment with this. Use it in a caulking gun, and when we get our piece cut out and we figure out what we want to do, we'll have to go ahead and prep the metal frame too. We want a nice clean bare metal surface for that glue and for the closed cell foam to stick to, so keep that in mind. We don't know exactly what we're doing here, but I will say that would probably be a very key issue, is you have nice clean metal so we can have a nice bond to what we are working with. Alright, so I went ahead and cleaned this up really good. I gave it a quick sanding down, just to help clean all the extra residue from the foam that was originally on it off. There's some in spots, but we've gotten the bulk of it. Used a good metal cleaner and went over that and just did it 2 or 3 times, and we got a nice clean surface, and we just wiped it down. And here they are. I got several different sizes. Shouldn't really matter. Even the small ones I got here should take care of what we're wanting to do. I went ahead and cut the piece. I gave it about 1 inch. I just went ahead and was liberal with it. I gave it a good inch around the perimeter of extra. Apply liberally to one side of the surface being bonded and apply firm pressure continuously for 10 to 30 seconds or longer for instant grab to take hold. In some applications, bracing may be required. That's where our clamps come in. And again, just remember, this is all an experiment on my part. I don't know what I'm doing per se. I'm using basic concepts and ideas from, if you go to glue something in, like we're using a caulking gun, it'll help us, use that, make sure everything's clean. We're cutting something a little bit larger so it'll wrap around. That's typical in interior work, fabric and all. So we're going to just see what we can do. One thing I will say about this is it says it's an instant bond, and then they kind of preface it with, if you hold it for 30 seconds or so. With this, no, it's not. You notice I put all the clamps over on one side. That's because it wasn't doing that. So I put a kind of a bracing over here, kind of like I was talking about with the paint stir sticks. And I just put a clamp on there. I'll probably grab a few more of those welding clamps. And I just put them in a closer ratio across this back spine here. And then we'll put a little bit more in here and then clamp that side up. Okay, so after a little bit of a lull in progress on this dash pad, I decided the other night to try to get active with it again. And my first theory of being able to take this foam, as thick as it is, and heating it up with a heat gun, and thinking that it would just easily fold around to this edge so I could glue it, did not work. The heat needed to be a little more consistent through a long stretch, and I couldn't get enough of it soft evenly in order to wrap it around. That's what this glue, basically leftover glue, is here. I put it on the edge and it started to run. It was Gorilla Glue actually, where it almost turns into a foam. And I started to get a shape on it here, but it's just so much resistance, so thick. And one of the things that I think I even showed on video, although I'm not sure, but we'll cover it here, is one of these foam cutting kits you can get at a hobby store. And they come with different tips. This is like a short, a little bit wider version, and then there's this long wand style. So this one, seeing as it has a smaller contact area, it's just a wire that's wrapped in a wishbone. You turn it on, let it set almost like a wood burner, and heat will pick up in there. And this foam is pretty thick. I managed to cut this piece off here so far. And if you let it set, it doesn't cut like insulation foam, but once you get a tooth on it, it'll have a slow, steady cut. And it doesn't look bad. We got here, and I'm not cutting it straight down. I'm actually kind of putting a little bit of a bevel on it. I'm going to try to cut around this whole thing like this, and try to keep it as even as possible. Anything that needs trimmed up later, we'll just go through, and maybe we can either heat it up with the gun and then cut it off, or trim it even with scissors or with this. And I'll try to cut on a little bit of it now. This has been heating up for a bit. I cut that bit. So we'll just try to keep it an angle here. There's no tool that I'm using, but I'm staying about 1/8 of an inch off of the actual metal bracing here, the framework. So we'll just go through, and as you'll see, it'll be a slow process, but we'll just kind of keep even pressure. Nothing too tight, it'll break that wire. But I'll pull it ahead a little bit and let the wire catch up, and then just advance it some. Not too bad. I think it'll need a little bit of touching up. But we're just trying to find a homemade solution for this, right? So, almost there! Boom. Right there. Alright, so we got some 80 grit. Alright, 80 grit, and I found out it'll take that closed cell foam down pretty easy. Just hold your angle where you need it. So I think what I'll do, I'll go around this whole thing and straighten out any of these little gouges that we created with our natural pull through it. And then I will go through and kind of take this sharp edge down, bevel it down a little bit, and see what we can get with that. So, hey, so far so good. I think this could work, at least until we get to the part where we wrap it in vinyl and then we hit catastrophe there. So. Alright, so you're looking at the dash pad, some foam, which we won't be using any more of this. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to use it for down the road. Preview. And we got some brand new material. Got it at the fabric store. It's a marine grade, and it's actually, you can use it on outdoor projects, so it takes a lot of weathering and will be good to use basically on a dash. So I started out this project with some vinyl that I already had, and I made a big mistake, and the mistake was kind of epic, so to speak. But what had happened was, remember the stitching that went around here, I took a template of it, and that was before I destroyed the padding on the dash. So I took a template. What happened was I laid it out, and you notice that this bump right here, it's not a symmetrical piece. It actually favors the right side. This would be the passenger side, or the driver's side. And it kind of hangs this way a little bit more. Well, somehow in my head, when I was laying this out, I had in my head, I just didn't think to look. I thought, oh, this makes sense. I had the short end thinking, oh, that's where the driver is. The rest of it's just left to the passenger. So I mapped it out like on this side of it, okay? And I went through and did my double stitching all the way around. Several hours worth of work. And it wasn't no sooner than I got it, the last stitch in, and I turned around, and I grabbed this, and I laid it down, and my bump out was over there, and I'm like, yeah, I did it backwards. Had it flipped over the other way. So, lesson learned. But the one that I did, it won't go to waste. Remember the overhead console? This is a closed cell foam that's, I don't know, about a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a little thicker than that. We're going to use this on the overhead console, which we built custom. So it'll have this kind of a soft feel to it, but still be firm. And we're going to cover it with this stuff. And we're going to use some more of our vinyl. And I managed to salvage what I had stitched and be able to use it on the console, and I think it'll work. So stay tuned for that. If we at some point get that video up, I'll try to put the link right up here, so down the road you'll be, hey, right here. So that's what happened there. So this is out of the picture for now. So what I'm going to do, I got about 7 feet of this. And I actually got it at a discount because I got the very last of the rolls, so they gave me like a $9 discount. So I only paid $25 for all this. I can not only do the dash, but I can do maybe even a couple of door panels, wrap it, and you can like make your door panels out of this plastic ABS paneling. You can get it in big sheets and wrap it in that. You can put some of the foam on it, have a nice soft touch, and be like a high quality product. So what I'm going to do is set this up and do it correctly this time. Get the direction right, and I'll start doing my stitching. And we'll use this little perforator wheel. That's how we did our stitching before. Get it, draw your line out, and you can follow it, push it down, pressure, and you can leave nice even holes, and you know where to put your stitching. That way they're not longer or shorter or going sideways and stuff. So we'll use that as like a template, and hopefully it'll come out looking really nice. Okay, so we have our new piece that's cut out, the vinyl here, the actual dash itself, and then the template. Now I wrote on here the other day, face, to make it super duper obvious. This part you have to be kind of careful about because you can't see the outline of the dash as much. Kind of do it if you do that. There. We're going to find position on it. No rocket science or anything like that involved, just basically taking your time and squaring it up. Like they're doing what they need to do. Pretty close. I'd say the favor's a little bit there, but this is just to get a mark. What I'm gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and use our wheel. Establish our first go around. We're gonna have 2 lines of stitches. I'm gonna hang off of this about 1/8 of an inch. If you don't have a steady hand, you probably don't want to do this. It's best if you can probably just hang right next to it. That'd probably work better for you. Just go slow. Be comfortable in your position. Should be no problem. Alright, went all the way around very carefully. And if I had to pick it up, I would try to realign where the holes were and continue on. That way when you get around to it and you're stitching, it won't have a variation. You should be able to pull this off. And I just went right over the tape. I didn't worry about going around it or anything like that. It's a little tough to see probably from your vantage point, but we have one nice even perimeter with the star wheel. So I'm going to run the other one. I think it's better. Alright, so what I did here, I pulled it up on the desk. A little easier to work on once you get the main perforator established. I just took some 3M pinstriping tape and ran it just where it's even all the way around. I got about 3/8 of an inch away from it to where this will be the side that we perforate here. And I just went as even as I could. Only took a few minutes to wrap it all the way around. And we'll basically do the same thing, only this time, like I said, we'll follow the inside of this, go all the way around. Make sure you are nice and firm. Don't let it get away from you. Push it down nice and firm, and if, like I said, if you have to pick it up, reestablish your hole there, and you go through. Now when we go to stitch this, I'll probably skip one of the perforations. It's just not that tight on here, so we can skip one and make it look a little bit more like this. So, and when you come back through, so you go in, but when you come back through from this side with the stitch, you'll come in as close as you can to it. So you'll come to that very next hole, you're just going to skip on the top. So then you get the wider stitch with the narrower break between them. So I'm going to do this, and we'll see how it looks, and we'll start stitching it up. Alright, so we did the inside perforation, removed pinstriping tape, and you can see down here what we got. Looks pretty even all the way around. I just took my time, put nice solid pressure on it, because this stuff's a little tough, so it's hard to make that perforation show. So you want to be able to see it when you start stitching it. So we got all the way around. Yeah, it shows it pretty good there. Alright everybody, I have been stitching and stitching and stitching, and the last time, the last segment you just was looking at was last night. This evening I continued on it, finished it, and then started on the outside one, which I've decided to do a single stitch. So it actually kind of looks almost like it's layered. But if I don't like it in the end, I'll just run it another stitch through again on top of the one that's on there. Very tedious, time-consuming, focusing type of a job. Some of this here, you see it looks messy. That's where I've made breaks and had to start new string, or it got knotted up and I had to start. So it can look a little messy, but you see how much work we put into it all the way around. And then we basically, when we're done with this, we'll tie up whatever ends we got here. We can glue some of it so it doesn't get pulled out, or even put tape over it, like a thin sticky tape. And again, we're trying to duplicate this, and it's pretty darn good for a first timer, I'll say that. Depending on where you're at on this, you know, you have to change your position. You can't always be as comfortable as you want. You can't be as rhythmic as you want. Things get in the way. Your own self gets in the way. But if you keep on with it and become determined, then you can accomplish it. Just take your time. I tend to have a deal where I like to do it all at once, but sometimes you just have to admit that you need a break. You need to go to bed for the night, and it works out pretty good. Just try to stay focused, and if the stitching part of it isn't your thing, which I kind of originally thought I wouldn't do the stitching, I would just put the little groove in it all the way around and be done with it, because I've seen some of the dashes were produced that way. But we got talking with Roadkill, one of our subscribers, one of our loyal members, and he kind of got my mind working on the stitching. I thought, well, I have stitched a few things before. I've sewed some buttons, so why not? Let's do roughly 10 feet, or actually, if you probably about 20 feet worth of stitching. Not to mention the other one that I messed up. So I've done about 40 feet of stitching. But you know what? I'm liking how this is looking. It's looking pretty sharp. And I cannot wait to actually get it done. One, so we can upload this video that we're making. Two, I'd just like to see it back on the dash and get it glued on there and all that good stuff. Every time I want to do something outside, the wind acts up. So this is one of them cases. So I brought it in here, nothing affecting us. Here's our 3M high strength 90. It's adhesive. I got this at Lowe's, about $12.90 something, I think. Withstands heat pretty well. So that's the thing. We're gonna have this thing in the window on a hot day, over and over and over. Shake it well. It does say that. Now remember our witness marks here, we want to use those. Here's mark 1, so we have it in line with that. This one is in line down here, but then you got to worry about these. So it's marked in under there, and this one here is marked on the edge, so we're going to check it again. Make a little adjustment. And this is a little nerve-wracking since we spent all this time on the stitching, a little bit of money here and there, mainly the time. So we want to just make sure we're thorough and we're doing it right. So I'm thinking a case like this, since I've got to split this in half, I take something a little hefty like these welding gloves, put it just left of center here. It'll hold that down, keep it in place. I'm also going to look at that again before I commit. And we're good. We got from the edge of the stitching to the edge here. When I fold that down, it's the same as down here. Yep. Just double check everything. And even after that, if you're not sure, check again. I'm going to check the roll down here. Looking good. And I'll accept if it's not perfect, but we're going to try to be as perfect as we can. Hold this back carefully. And I also do not want to, when I spray this, don't want to get the glue all over this part, so I'm going to cover this somehow. I'll lay this back down easily. Now we'll fold it back. Very stringy, but very even at the same time. And it said 1 to 3 even coats. Now we want to do this part. That's the double bonding surface. Alright, there's our first coat on both sides. Let them set for a few minutes, and we'll put another coat on. Check our centers again here. We're good there. Don't know what happened. Kind of scares you. Because if it was an instant stick, you would have been messed up. There's a little bit more. Crazy. We got that, that's where we want our air with the stitching, and the edge is about like that. Our line stops about there, so move it back just beyond, right there. I'll move you around here. All these strings that you're looking at over here, I'll show you what I did on the other side. Notice how we have a lot of wild hairs, so to speak. So when I get the adhesive on there, I can reposition them and they'll stick. Some of them I have tied together, some of them are loose, but the glue should hold them into place. You can put tape on them. Actually, that's what the original dash here had. And if you don't want to make a mess of it, just get your knife out. Lay it in line with the rest of the stitching. So if there is any bulging in that area, it'll allow it to be where it's intended to be, and that's right where the thread is. Like that. And I think actually this is probably more important than we like to give it credit for, because just think about how this type of glue holds things down, and you go to lay that down and it leaves that little, looks like a little hairline in there, and nothing's wrong with it otherwise, other than you have something underneath there formed. Now notice I don't have the shirt back over here on this part. Make sure you don't spray it underneath and get it on top of your show layer. Alright, I think we're ready. It's not pulling up. Perfect. Perfecto. At least in my book it's perfect. And I'm pretty picky. So make sure we rub it down here where the split was. Where we went this way and we went that way. Make sure we don't have any bubble in there. And give it a good massage. And again, just doing the flat part of it. The easy to contact area. Alright, so we'll look at it from the front side here. What we got. It laid down perfect. It is not perfect as far as everything. I'm not a machine, nor are you, but hey, this looks better than what we probably would have done if we just ran into it and decided to just throw it together. We got nice straight stitches here, pretty even. Got a nice shape to it. So then next we will worry about getting all of this trimmed up and avoid doing this kind of thing, just wrapping over that way. See what we can do there. I've not really much experience with that, but we'll see if we can wing it, do the best we can. Use a heat gun even and some glue. So that'll be the last step. Alrighty, so I have spent the past hour working on that side of the dash so that I could prepare it and see what we had, so I could show you working on this side of the dash, okay? So I didn't want to just run you through a bunch of me trial and error kind of stuff. So I went ahead and did that side, and it's turned out really good. So we're going to just transfer that information down here and work this end out. And I think you'll enjoy that. This looks really nice. I have a piece of tape right here in this corner just holding one of the little layers over right there. So, but if you look at it from about midway down, of course it's not perfect, but hey, we're doing the best we can. If I could do it, then you can definitely do it. And just a little bit of instruction, a little bit of time and effort, we'll get the rest of this finished up. And I really didn't have to use the heat gun on it. It was basically some stretching after I made some relief cuts. That was the primary thing. Now, I'm going to do this part here in a couple of sections, and instead of having this big fold right here to deal with, I will trim it down a little bit more conservative depth, I guess you could say, but enough to give it a good grab when you put the glue on there, so it'll fold over like that. Now, right here, it's going to interfere with the stud, so I'm just going to cut it to where it will avoid that. You lay it on there, it'll go around it, it won't interfere there. And if you do these relief cuts, make sure, like right here, that how you can see the side right here, you don't want to take these scissors and cut it all the way down there, because that's going to actually show out here. So you want to be conservative on your cut. Don't cut any more than the edge of your bracing will allow. So I can bring it right up to it and trim near it, but still don't go right up next to it. So I left about 1/4 of an inch. That way if I need to wrap it around like this, I can. Okay, so there's that one. We'll do the same thing here. And if you want, you can kind of cut corners out because they will bunch up. I will take that lesson from down there. That end, I had them kind of layered. I had to trim them away as they was laying down. And we'll have to probably trim a little bit more as we go, but that's fine. So I'm going to cut one about there. Okay. And then, like I said, down here I'll cut some. Yeah, I'll just cut one right here. Make sure it doesn't get too far. About there. And this here, probably afford to just cut that edge off as well as this one. So now we've trimmed that out, at least to a decent start. Now I'm doing this in the house, so we don't want to make a mess with anything. Some of this debris off here is some of the old glue, the Gorilla Glue actually is what some of that is. Alright, so we don't want to make our mess, so I just took a piece of cardboard here. And I'm going to spray it on this edge here and on the frame itself at the same time. I'm just going to go from about where this stud is to this stud. And here in about 2 minutes, we'll put another coat on there. And this I can do good with 2 coats. Wrap it around, and it'll go down really easy, just like it did down here. Actually, surprisingly easy. It doesn't lift on you. Alright, so we'll just start on the edge here. Whatever wants to stick will stick. Because we got 2 flaps, so I'll start in the center of this one. Just press it around. Get a nice firm grab there. Then I'll come over to about the middle of the edge, and where I just pressed it, push it against the body, and down. Same thing here. Then you just keep going in the center of each area you haven't touched yet, and then on the edge you push it all the way in like that. And you can rub it down like there. You get a nice tight finish there. Now this one here, same situation. We'll start in the middle about where this rib is. Almost got this whole front edge here. We're going to leave this at the moment. I'll show you how we got into that curve, an S curve. This one here. We'll go ahead and do this side here and establish this whole, the length of it. And then we'll start doing these ends and then the tight corners. We'll get 2 coats of that, just like that, and then let it set for about 8-10 minutes, stick it down. I do need to do a little more trimming, and that's careful trimming. I realize I won't need this, so I'm just going to trim that off. I have to start wrapping it, but I can cut this that way. And trim that away. Another thing. One thing to remember, since this takes such a drastic dip, right here it comes up, the foam has separated away from it. So when we go to wrap this, it's a good idea to get a little bit of the adhesive down in between these on both ends. That way when we go to stretch it and pull it up on here to touch it here, it'll pull all that together. It won't be floppy, sloppy, anything like that. So it'll kind of do a dual purpose there when we do all these together. Okay, now we've gotten this edge here. These edges have been established. Now right here is where it gets a little tricky, and you have to kind of stretch the vinyl around. And pull this and pull this here together inward. Stick this one down. There we go, wrinkling. Gotta pull the wrinkle out, give it some slack. That. Pull this one in. I think I'll have to make another relief cut. Yeah, let's do it like this. Okay, there we go. If you do have the pleats or the wrinkles, try to get it away from what will be visual. I've done a decent job there. I don't think it's great. Pull this up a little bit. I can probably re-stretch it. There we go. Pull it back out. Something like that, and then attach it to the sides here. Take fingernails, kind of pull this one out some. So if you see what we got there, I can maybe even use the heat gun on that edge here in a minute. But I'll get all the other ones put down first. We'll work on that one next. And I think we need to get our material lined out first a little better. Again, stretch it up and inward as much as inward center would be. Kind of having the same opening on this side, so I'm going to peel it back, take the slack out of it a little bit where the wrinkle started here, pull it back like so. Now I'm going to put a little bit of glue in here so I can set it down in about 5 minutes or so. I'll probably do the same thing here. Make sure you put it on both sides. Okay, here's this part. Now we obviously need to make a relief cut so that this flat part can rest here. But the corner itself, that's where it really gets difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and get the relief cut there. This one will wrap around, okay? That'll leave this. So I don't really want to glue this by itself yet. Some people may be good at that, but I haven't figured that part out yet. But I do know we can kind of test and see how it lays. We can cut a little bit out here. Stretch it. Once you get it kind of pulled where you like it here, I realize if you come back and not pull one direction like this, because then it'll pucker that up, or pull here, it'll pucker it up here. If you find like a balance between here and here, it seems to like that, and you get a nice radius there. So I'm just going to make a quick mark kind of where we know we like it to be. And that's just in this situation. And then I will spray our glue on there. Okay, we've got our tack time down to just a nice touch, a little tack. Now, my little pencil mark I made there for my test, I'm just going to pull this one right back to that point. Settle it in. Now this one, pull up on it. Press down on the inner edge and flatten it out. Push it all down. I'll also show you the little bit of an improvement I made down on the end of the dash. The part we was working on a few minutes ago. I cut away actually quite a bit of extra where it was layering up on top of itself. For this piece that was hanging out, I went ahead and trimmed that out, laid this down. I put some glue in here, and it's now to the point where it can tack up. And I should be able to push it down there. Squeeze that pleat kind of inward so that it disappears. And I really only have a little bit one here, but so far in the end, I'm not going to worry about it. It's very gradual. Be nice if it could be a little better, but I think I'll live with it. And we've got this pretty much smoothed out now. So let's look at the whole thing. Alright, so this is the windshield side. Piece of tape off I had on that corner from earlier. The glue residue, get that out. Flip around, you can see the front side of it, or the passenger side. I'm really happy with this. I'll take my heat gun, I think, hit that right there. Let's see if I can smooth it out. Got two settings. This is a Harbor Freight one, Warrior. I think it was $15 for this. It's got a high and a low. I'll just go ahead and put it on high. Might not do anything, but we'll give it a try. I notice it gets hot real quick, so That helps smooth it out some. You put it on the low setting actually. I got a little spot here. I pushed that pretty good. So here it is. And here in a minute we'll put it on the van and get a good look at it, how it's supposed to be when it's all done. Alright, moment of the truth right here. Moment of truth. Just lay it in this way. Man, that looks great. There's just a very slight inconsistency, and I think that's in the foam that I used. But hey, considering what we could have paid if the guy said he would do it, versus the satisfaction of doing it this good ourselves. Looking at the cockpit view here, I'm pleased. I'm glad I did it. And then let's see, what did we spend on this? The vinyl, I bought a little bit more than I needed, so I was thinking about doing some door panels and some other stuff. That was $24. The spray, the adhesive spray, was $12. The Gorilla Glue was like $5, something like that. The Flex Seal glue, but you can either use one or both. I actually think I would recommend the Gorilla Glue based on the edges. I think it was $20, so I would go to the Gorilla Glue on that one. Just trim it off when it all dries. It gets foamy. The foam itself, a roll of it, which I still have a lot left, I could actually do another dash, was $25. And that's it, I think. Oh yeah, the heat gun was $14. You don't really need it though, in this case. You might need it for another project, maybe a little more exotic curve in it. But I didn't necessarily need it. You probably just use a hairdryer. Other than that, yeah. Under $100. And I probably, if he would have agreed to doing it, it probably would have been $300 or $400. He would have had to do the padding and all that stuff, I guess. So happy with it, and it feels good. It's got a nice, thickness to it. Soft, but not too soft. We'll get the nuts on there and get it tightened down. So, hey, thanks for watching Hoosier Garage. This is an ambitious little project here. Hope you learned something from it. If you got any questions, just write it down below. If you like the video, make sure you like. If you like the Hoosier Garage and you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe now. Tell your friends about us. Share on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you can. We just hope you enjoy what we got going on here. We got other cars down the road. If you don't know that, check it out. So, thanks for watching.